Is that face mine in their photograph? Dark and light, it's just a virtual life in this holograph. Falling through the world, all or nothing. Is there something at all between us? Falling through the world, revolving like a beautiful blue balloon.
Beachfront maintain 16,000, turn left heading 110, back number 4.
Kilo Whiskey Hotel Goose, altimeter 3002.
3002, have the traffic 34, and we're...
This is your captain speaking. On behalf of the crew, I welcome you aboard the flight tonight. We recognize you have a choice in air carriers, and so we appreciate you joining us this evening. We're next in line for takeoff. We'll have to wait here for just a moment here on the tarmac for clearance from the tower. In the meantime, our cabin crew will demonstrate the safety features of this aircraft.
Westbound along the river, 200 below.
This is your captain speaking. We're still waiting for clearance.
Kilo Whiskey Hotel, check your westbound 200 feet and below. Thank you.
And still waiting? It's like we're always waiting, aren't we? Now is either waiting for the next moment or remembering the last. Always in between. Stuck between memory and anticipation. You know what I mean? And we're still waiting. Waiting for Godot, possibly. Wonder if that's what Beckett meant. I mean, we're always waiting for the answers, aren't we? Waiting for someone to show us which road to take. Tell us that we're going to be all right, that we're going to be able to go on, that we don't have to give up. Waiting seems to be a condition of existence, isn't it? We know that we're here because we wait. We wait for time. We wait for proof that we're real.
2808.
This is your cab speaking. We have clearance from the tower to taxi to the runway. Please stay in your seats and fasten your seatbelts. You know, in quantum mechanics at the atomic level, we may not really exist in the traditional view. I mean, in a specific time and place, that is. Rather, in the quantum world, we might exist more like a wave rather than a specific point. And in quantum entanglement, we may be connected to everything and be everywhere at once. As your captain speaking, cabin crew, cross-check, please. You know, in the quantum wave, there are an infinite number of points of engagement to negotiate our reality. But we can't really experience the wave, so we're mostly unaware of the opportunities to negotiate our existence. We're mostly just carried forward by time and events, unable to see ourselves in all our possibilities, in our greater becoming. I mean, sure, we make all kinds of decisions in our daily lives. We negotiate with others, with circumstances, with time, with nature, with our bodies. And that does have a bearing on our existence, but don't you ever have the feeling that you're missing some bigger picture about your life? That there is something so much more? That your life might be a deep, deep place, reaching far across the universe, flying at the speed of light. So much so that when you're waiting like this, here in the slowness of this dimension, that you just know that your life is more electric than that, more like a shooting star. In quantum experiments, it's actually been shown that human consciousness and we as observers have actual impact on the quantum world It's as if the wave of existence has will. It wants to be known by us, and it knows that your mind and my mind are the bridge. It wants us to know more about ourselves and everyone and everything else. It wants us to push a little deeper, inwards and then outwards.
For 1 runway 26, report Albert.
As your captain speaking, we are cleared for takeoff. Please be advised to remain seated and keep your seatbelts fastened until the sign has been turned off. You know, if you look out your windows right now and you see the night falling, you remember that it's often at nighttime when the light is drawn down, smoothing out the physical world, mending all fissures and cloaking all detail. And that's when the light of what we think we see gives way to the shadows and lets in the altered states of consciousness and also the bigger questions, right? How did we get here? What are we here for?
Vega Bay, winds 28018, altimeter 300.
And then we lift off, pushing a little deeper, inwards, and then outwards, and then upwards. Now you can really see your life, can't you? Because from this height, we live and fly without a net. The incredible rush of knowing that there's no one left to catch us anymore. Enjoy the flight.
Endless are the ways to come undone, and endless are the ways.
It's all riding on Sonny. It was a catchphrase she had devised. Throwing all caution to the solar winds, it was her pledge to the power of light. In the face of disappointment, the idea was to reposition one's thoughts towards the light at the end of the tunnel, to react to the negative by leaning toward the upside of things and letting it all ride on the sunny side. She had seen this in nature. She had learned this from her bees. the complete absence of hopelessness. When she moved into the old farmhouse near the Bay of Quinte, she discovered an infestation of bees in the floorboards of the attic. Rather than destroy them, she coaxed them into a large box, a new hive, which she then moved out into the field. It was a nature trick she had learned from her neighbor, an ancestor of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nations. He had come from a long line of beekeepers on this land. Much of the land in the region had been ceded to the Mohawks First Nation by the British Crown in gratitude for Mohawk support during the War of 1812, a gesture quickly forgotten by the white settlers who later moved in and occupied about 2/3 of the promised territory. When she learned of this history, she thought differently about her farm and pledged to share its life. With help from her neighbor, she began with just one hive, but now tended an apiary of several dozen. Not just a beekeeper, she was a bee student, in awe of their system of navigation based on the sun's position. To the bees, everything revolves around the star. The sun is their totem, the alchemical push and pull of life. Through photosynthesis, the solar promise is delivered from star to plant to bee. The sign on the gate to her farm advertised her philosophy. It's all riding on Sonny. You get more sweetness with honey. Her customers got a kick out of this and came from across Prince Edward County to buy her honey, her fruit, and vegetables. She had moved from the city in the hopes that the country life might offer a new start. She found that beekeeping gave her something to occupy her mind. After he was gone, after he had lost all hope, she was haunted by his absence, the playback in her mind, all those tape loops, the conversations and incidents during which she knew something was wrong. Since then, she had done her best to insert into those tape loops the things she wished she'd said, words of wisdom or words of compassion which might have changed his outlook. But she hadn't said them. She should have. She could have, but she hadn't. Maybe she'd been too entangled in his spiraling descent to notice her own changes. Maybe his hopelessness had become too normal, the inching and slipping away. All she knew was that she had done nothing to stop the landslide of his spirit, and that hurt even more than his absence. His was a final protest, a rebellion against the absurdity of existence. It's not that he had a better proposition for life, no great charter of reformation to nail to the door like Martin Luther, for he'd lost too much spirit for that. His protest was coldly philosophical and reductionist, cutting through to the basic human complaint. She had told him that he thought too much, that maybe he was just too conscious of things, too focused on the grand contradictions of life. She observed how a storm always seemed to be hovering over him, his shoulders bearing the weight, his face submitting to the strain. She wondered how she might have convinced him to allow that tension to melt away, maybe just a tilt of his head toward the warmth of the sun, a simple nod to the star, a reminder that maybe our purpose is just to be of this place, in the light, now. Her bees had taught her about nowness, how to press on with our short lives, finding eternity in the present. Watching her bees made her wonder whether bees are self-conscious in the way we are, if bees debate the question of whether they are happy or not. Or do they make a different promise to themselves, living life as it is in relation to their star, revolving around it, and in so doing coming to know the grand purpose of it all? 50,000 bees just being. Unaware of the life of bees, he'd found meaning in the existentialists, Sartre and Camus, and their proposition that existence precedes essence. The idea that before any kind of form or essence takes shape around our being in nature, all we can know for sure is that we exist. I am, and I am aware of knowing that I am. I just exist. Beyond that, he concluded, things just get messy. We can argue about the rest of existence because everything else is just a theory, a construction, an illusion. He figured that's why humans gravitated to the solace of religion, to delegate the tough stuff to the sky gods who must know the purpose for us here on the ground. All part of some cosmic and reassuring narrative, but to him just fantasy and folly. His efforts to find the answers over the years through different spiritual traditions had yielded nothing meaningful to him. He resolved it's not whether you can find God, but whether God can find you. And so he came to agree with the existentialists that the universe swirls and expands without meaning, that the universe has no purpose, no interest in its creations, no loyalty to its human progeny. And that begged the question, how do we live in the face of such profound alienation from the source which created us? Like the French existentialists, he wondered about the value of life within such an absurd existence. He would often say when challenged about his outlook, just think of the scenario we inherit at our birth. From the moment of our emergence into this random blip of time, we find ourselves in a struggle for survival, knowing full well that we are careening toward death. And to make matters worse, he declared, the entire drama is played out without an intelligible purpose. That's not to say he lived his life entirely without hope or direction. He tried to be an optimistic person, helpful to others and even charitable. He coped with the absurdity of life by playing the game as best he could, trying his best to do no harm, to be agreeable to the fantasies conjured by those around him. But where fantasies seemed to satisfy others, a nagging truth followed him like the limping dog he'd seen on the streets of Paris in one of those bleak French films, reminding him that each of us is just a solitary consciousness, alone in the universe and struggling onward. His was a call from the fire, a spark pleading for meaning. He'd seen much chaos around the world during his 25 years as an international journalist, on the front lines of war, injustice, scarcity, hunger, opposition, hopelessness, and decay. She'd seen him try to make sense of all of this. She'd seen him do battle with ghosts and with memory, and like Macbeth, strut his hours upon the stage, bearing witness to the sound and fury, all signifying nothing. Her bees had shown her a different kind of existence, an interdependent continuum, an eternal life revolving in a common purpose around the star. She wished she could show him that now. She wished she'd cradled him in the warmth of that knowing life as a greater vision. Maybe he just needed some proof. Life is an anxious business. He was surely right about that. We're all burdened by the weight of our own questions. We all need some daily proof that the enterprise of life is somehow worth it. She learned that we can be that proof, reaching across the void, reaching through to each other. We all need some daily proof that we're not alone. Her bees had shown her that there is a bridge across that aloneness. Watching her bees, she had seen that communication, a connectivity, even at a distance, so organic and electric. The bridge maintains its strength from the tenacity to push on with existence, to push on without expectation of reward. The reward is in the living, in the nowness. This enlightened perspective has sustained bees for 80 million years. And what comes through the bees sustains humans too. A third of the food that humans eat is pollinated by bees. Most of the crops planted by humans require that pollination. From star to plant to bee to human. A chain of light, the continuum of life. So tending the hives in her apiary was her service and her therapy. She discovered that bees evoke calm in their keeper, and if the beekeeper is calm, she'll rarely be stung. such as the order of bees, 50,000 workers in the hive behaving like a single organism, cooperative yet autonomous in their pursuit of purpose. Theirs is a grand communication, facilitated by vibration, movement, and pheromones. Humans are the weak link in the communication across nature. Most of the time we don't speak the language. We just don't get it. The impact of the human race has destroyed about half the bee colonies of the world. The scriptures had proclaimed, "Thou shalt have dominion over the planet," a prophecy terribly misinterpreted. And so, to make amends, she tended her hives like a steward, taking responsibility to live out the creed of the star, to be the courier of light. To acknowledge the bridge from sun to bee, she had named her farm Sonny's Apiary. Customers assumed the obvious and addressed her as Sonny, and she felt no compulsion to correct them. The moniker stuck. Her adopted name felt authentic somehow. She found herself inhabiting the name, honoring its creed by dispensing words of reassurance and inspiration to her customers. Visitors to Sonny's farm were treated to stories about the wisdom of leaning toward the light, embracing the uptick of things. Her favorite story was an illustration of her new philosophy, a story about the 1929 stock market crash. It concerned a financial titan of considerable wealth, pacing the floor of his expansive office at the top of the tallest tower in the city. Agonizing over the news of the crash, he despairs of the loss of his investments, and even worse, the loss of his future market leverage. He opens the door to his rooftop terrace, walks 20 paces, and leaps over the edge. In the same office building, 87 floors below, a janitor arrives for work and hangs his coat in the cleaning closet he's called his office for 20 years. His supervisor interrupts his efforts to fill a large mop bucket with water and informs him that he'll receive a retroactive increase of 5 cents to his hourly wage, a correction to an accounting error. He cleans the floors that day with particular vigor and contentment. Sonny advised, it's all about how you perceive the relative direction of things, how you frame them, that matters. Her customers spread her stories, their power growing with each telling, a bridge of light. Embossed on her honey jars, her favorite slogan, "You get more sweetness with honey," as if to give the content some deeper meaning, like the alchemy from sun to liquid gold. Making honey is her therapy. It helps to mute those tape loops in her mind, voices which she knows will never disappear entirely. And for Sonny, that's okay, because those voices remind her that even in our darkest moments, there will be light again. And that's what she wished she had told him. Not that such a perspective would have solved all the problems of the world, nor help him suddenly find joy in his life, but to make that day a bit more bearable. She thinks if he was here right now, she would feed him from one of her honey jars. Just a finger dip. That's all it would take. A dose of golden sunlight, harvested from the long reach of star to plant to bee.
Is there a lock on your door? Or do the spokes of your heart